the launcher takes off.
Go Ariane 5.
Go Ariane 5. Enjoy.
À tous de DDO, attention pour le décompte final. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, top. Allumage Vulcain. Allumage EAP, décollage. La propulsion est nominale. La propulsion est nominale.
And there we go. We've seen the Ariane 5 lift off, roaring through the tropical sky, carrying JUICE on the first leg of her journey into space. And now she has disappeared under the clouds. And see there, in Kourou, there are many places from which to watch these launches. As you can see, the beach, any place. And here we have a glimpse again of the rocket. Raphael, it's an amazing sensation for you as well, I'm sure.
Yeah, even with the clouds, it's just...
La trajectoire est nominale, tous les paramètres bord sont nominaux.
It's really, really always impressive, and it's an emotion to see it. So the DDO said that the trajectory is nominal, which means that it's working perfectly, it's going as planned.
La propulsion est nominale, le pilotage est calme.
And in fact, just to sum up what the DDO does in 3 words, his responsibility, he's the person who calls out every milestone along the way, and he's in charge of providing information on propulsion, guidance, and trajectory.
Exactly, he's like an orchestra conductor, gathering all the information and summarizing it in real time, and soon we'll have booster separation.
We're waiting for confirmation from the DDO.
Séparation des EAP.
So the boosters have been safely separated. This is great. They have provided 90% of the overall thrust of the flight, so they're doing the main job. And then soon we'll have the separation of the fairing. And by the way, you see a special drawing on the fairing right here. Children around the world were asked to submit artwork
La trajectoire est nominale.
Inspired by JUICE's epic journey, and on this fairing, we see one child's interpretation of Jupiter embracing our spacecraft. Everything is nominal.
Tous les paramètres bord sont nominaux.
All parameters are going smoothly.
And there we have it. We've seen it in our 3D
Séparation preuve
animation,
confirmée.
and we've just heard it from the DDO.
Confirmed. So the fairing was used to protect the satellites from the friction of the air, but also from the noise generated during the ascent phase. We obviously need to safely separate the fairing, otherwise we would not be able to release JUICE into space.
La propulsion est nominale.
It also means that we have crossed the limit of the atmosphere. So JUICE is on its way to be separated in about 24 minutes from now. So by the way, we will have so the separation of the cryogenic stage when it has placed the launcher on an intermediate orbit. After this, I can mention that during, and we can actually see it on the motion design, because this is 3D animations here, that during the ascent phase, the launcher is set in what we call a barbecue mode. So it's slightly rotating on itself at a speed of 0.7 degrees per
Le
second.
pilotage est calme, la propulsion est nominale.
So we do this so that every face of the satellite is equally exposed to the sunlight. We just want to avoid overheating in one particular side of the spacecraft, which could damage the instruments. And as a matter of fact, when the upper stage is going to be injected on the targeted orbit, it will also rotate at a speed of 0.5 degrees in one direction, and then at the same speed in the other direction. Again, to avoid overheating on one part of the spacecraft, exactly like, a barbecue.
Exactly. And of course, there are the onboard computers. What are they measuring right now, Raphaël?
Well, they optimize the
La
trajectory
propulsion est nominale, le pilotage est calme.
Everything is nominal, so they optimize the trajectory in real time. They minimize the propellant consumptions to bring the launcher to the intermediate orbit, targeted at the end of the main stage propulsion phase. And as a matter of fact, we are accelerating a lot right now. So within the next 3 to 4 minutes, we'll go from, 3.5 kilometers per second to more than 7 kilometers per second.
So how much is that per hour? Because you're the engineer.
25,000 kilometers per hour. And ultimately, JUICE will be separated at a
La
speed of
trajectoire est nominale,
almost
le pilotage est calme.
10 kilometers per second. And it will be separated at an altitude of 1,533 kilometers.
Very precise. Okay. So the next milestone we are now waiting for, and we'll be hearing this again from the DDO, is the acquisition by our downrange station of Natal. That is located in on an island in the middle of the Atlantic. I'll just wait and hear that from the DDO. He may not have confirmed it orally, but by now it is.
Just to explain, all along the route eastwards, Ariane is tracked from the ground. So the launcher's functions and vital signs are recorded and sent back to a network of stations that keeps constant watch on the health of the launcher
Acquisition
systems.
par la station télémesure de Natal.
And we have
it. And
the confirmation that the first...
Apologies, of course, I did not mean Ascension. I meant Natal, over the border in Brazil, of course. That's the second downrange station.
And just so you know, in all, that's about 1,500 parameters that is collected.
Collected, my goodness. So there's no way these
La trajectoire est
1,500
nominale, tous les paramètres bords sont
parameters can
normaux.
be analyzed in real time, Raphaël. What happens to them?
Well, the complete analysis is carried out in the weeks following the launch by a dedicated team. They provide a wealth of information about how the vehicle performed during its mission. And so this is why we constantly, improve our knowledge of a launcher, launch after launch. And then that's why Ariane 5 is such a reliable launcher.
And so you were talking about the stations, and it's a little bit, you were saying to me earlier when we were chatting, it's like a
Trajectoire
relay race,
nominale,
these
tous les
stations, isn't
paramètres
it?
bords sont
These
nominaux.
downrange.
Yeah.
You were listening to the DDO. What did he say? I didn't hear him.
He said that all the parameters are working perfectly.
Nominal, that's what we like to
So the
hear.
flight is perfectly smooth. So yeah, this is like a relay race with one telemetry station passing the baton to the next one, because we want to keep full visibility of the launcher in all dynamic phases of the flight. So the first stations to pick up the data was Galileo, right here in Kourou, followed by Natal in Brazil, then the island of Ascension in the middle of the Atlantic, and followed by Libreville in Gabon, and finally Malindi in Kenya.
As the launcher crosses
Trajectoire
Africa.
nominale, tous paramètres nominaux.
So we'll have 3 different, very short sequences right now.
Coming up.
The cutoff of the main stage.
We should hear
then
that.
The jettison of the main stage, and then the ignition of the upper stage. So it should be confirmed.
Extinction Vulcain. Séparation EPC.
And the ignition coming up.
Yep. Waiting for the
Allumage
confirmation.
ESC confirmé.
That's a very good news. That's very
You
important
should see the
step
smile on
towards the
Raphael's
sky.
face. You can't because we're in our little booth. Because we forgot to mention that we are now in the sky booth, where we have a fantastic view over Jupiter, where we can see the crowds gathered. And yes, and so you cannot see the smile on Raphael's face, but he is delighted that this stage has gone perfectly.
Yeah, the ignition of upper stage is absolutely key because it's always quite a little bit tricky to ignite a liquid stage in the emptiness of space. Sorry, I told you that on the ground we wait for a few seconds to check that the Vulcan engine is correctly ignited
Fin de visibilité par la station de Galileo.
before liftoff. But in space, it's just not possible to do that. You cannot send somebody to repair the engine. Also in zero gravity, the propellant is floating in all
Le pilotage
directions.
est calme.
The thermal environment is also not the same as it is on the ground. So, you know, there are many factors that make it quite
Trajectoire
challenging
nominale, tout paramètres bord nominaux.
and complex to ignite the engine in space.
So we were mentioning earlier, this is the penultimate Ariane 5 launch, which for more than a quarter of a century has provided Europe with reliable and independent access to space, which Joseph Aschbacher was talking about earlier. Ariane 6 will be taking over. Europe's best engineers are building on the success of Ariane 5, and there's already a fully integrated
La
Ariane
propulsion
6
est nominale.
on the launch pad right here in Kourou.